Hi, once again you're welcome to this channel, and today we are going to be talking about elder abuse. Usually some people ask, but are the elderly persons abused? Yes, there may be sequences of abuse for the elderly. Perhaps these are actually underreported, but we have to understand that the elderly persons are equally a class of vulnerable people, and what most of them go through are not usually reported because sometimes they are afraid to speak up. So they prefer to remain within and conceal everything that is happening to them. So I'm going to bring this to the light of each and every one of us to understand that the elderly persons too undergo some form of abuse. So it is important for us to know what abuse is, so that in case we have someone who is caring for our elderly parents, we may be able to spot it out and understand if our elderly loved ones are undergoing any form of abuse. First of all, what is abuse? Abuse is any form of harm or distress that can be caused on an elderly person, and this can happen anywhere, in our houses, in the hospitals, wherever the elderly persons may find themselves. Abuse on the elderly can be carried out by someone who is so close, I mean so close to the elderly, or someone that is not just known at all. But most often, abuse on elderly is carried out by very close people. Unfortunately, abuse in the elderly can take several forms. It is therefore imperative for you to be able to identify it so that you can be able to help the elderly ones. And the various forms of abuse that we have are physical, where you have beating, physical contact, hitting the elderly persons. We equally have emotional abuse, bullying the elderly, calling the elderly person's names, and this often falls in the range of ageism, where we are treating the elderly person so mean and so disrespectfully and tell them that their ages don't fit in a certain milieu. That is emotional abuse with respect to the elderly persons. Next is sexual abuse. A lot of people ask, but elderly persons are not sexually abused. No, of course they do. Probably because it is really underreported. They do undergo such forms of abuse as well, where you have people forcing themselves on the elderly persons. So please always ensure that you're monitoring your elderly persons closely, because you may not know what they're going through. Financial abuse, with loss of cognition, inability to retain figures, most close to relative tend to abuse the elderly persons financially. They take their money without their knowledge, they change their bank accounts, they change a lot of things in their property and take all the things they labored for without even telling them. That is financial abuse in the person of the elderly persons. So perhaps you may want to verify if your elderly person is undergoing some form of abuse. So always ensure, because there could be signs that definitely do not lie. Unexplained brushes on the elderly person, and sometimes what they're telling you does not really match what you're seeing. A very sudden change in behavior. You see someone who used to be very jovial, who used to be very happy, but suddenly the person becomes so moody and just wants to isolate himself or herself. Then there is a problem which needs to be checked. Perhaps that elderly person is undergoing some form of abuse. Lies that there is a sudden change in the elderly person's bank account and statement, because relatives or close workers, those who are close to them, could definitely withdraw funds from the bank accounts without letting them know. So you have to ensure and verify all of this. Elderly abuse is a reality, even if it may be underreported. The elderly persons undergo abuse, and we spoke about physical abuse, emotional abuse, which we could term ageism, sexual abuse, and most importantly, financial abuse. So please, in caring for your elderly persons or in taking care of the older persons, ensure to avoid any form of abuse. They too are humans and they have rights that need to be respected.